We're glad that everyone is able to make it out on this beautiful Washington day. My colleagues are all commenting how happy they are to have them out here in this very tropical weather that we're having here in Washington, D.C. But I want to say how proud I am to be standing here with my colleagues in these incredible preserving America's most important insurance program, Social Security. H.R. 1391, the Social Security 21 was introduced yesterday on St. Patrick's Day at Ritchie, the Irish Caucus, and also the head of the New England delegation. But I want to thank you for being here, and I especially want to thank my colleague from Connecticut, Senator Richard Bloom, who is the lead sponsor of this bill in the Senate. Special thanks to our advocates, Nancy Altman, the co-director of Social Security Works and co-author of a tremendous new book that I hope everyone reads of the same title, Max Richmond, the president of the National Committee to Preserve Social Security and Medicare, and Dr. Maya Rockamore, the president of the Center for Global Policy Solutions. Let me say up front as well that I know especially the members of the Ways and Means Committee have another committee meeting to, and again, I thank them for. Social Security is singularly the most important benefit that Americans receive. It's the most important element of retirement for millions of seniors. It's the backstop for those who become and provides critical survival to those loved ones. But here's the rub. While we cherish the vital benefits of Social Security and what it provides, there are still those who don't believe that it's going to be there for them when they retire. We're here today to announce a common sense path forward to ensure that the program is here into the next century and that the benefits are not only going to be here, but they will be enhanced. Like Roosevelt, like Ronald Reagan, and now like Obama, when this nation, when this country is faced with this, when it has to deal with Americans' security, we do not retreat. America moves forward, and doing today, Social Security 2100 Act. This pragmatic solution enhances benefits, makes the system solvent through the next century, and does not add to the deficit. It immediately improves and enhances 2% and provides a tax cut to over 11 million beneficiaries. It changes the COLA to account for the costs that seniors actually incur to something we call CPIE. Let me now introduce we call on the Ways and Means Committee the face of Social Security because he's a person who has firsthand experience of it, and without which he would not be here today as a United States Congressman. The Dean of the New England delegation, Richard Neal.
Let me point out at the beginning, I have not begun to draw Social Security benefits. Thanks, John, and to the members that are aligned here today in support of a bedrock principle in America, and that's the guarantee of Social Security. I used those benefits as a 18-year-old young man after my parents had died. Lived together. College, my aunt and a grandmother, my sisters, we lived together based upon Roosevelt's guarantee. And I think the astounding success of the Social Security program really stands as a beacon of hope for not only senior citizens, but the other important components of Social Security, which includes the Disability Trust Fund that this Congress is going to be called upon in the near future to address. And that's just around. It was only 10 years ago here that we had this idea that I thought was perfectly wacky, and that was to propose privatizing the Social Security Trust Fund and turning it over to investment. I wonder how that idea would have worked when you look back at what occurred in that aftermath. In addition to the guarantee of Social Security, I'll point out something else I think that we all note. You can outlive an annuity. You cannot outlive Social Security. And just as Roosevelt envisioned, and just as the advocates have done such a great job behind us today, Social Security remains the greatest instrument of poverty that has been developed in the history of man and womankind. So thanks to John and these other advocates here today, and more certainty. And also another reminder, like Mike Precker is out there who worked for me for many years, and we discussed those questions that were always raised about Social Security. People really ought to take the time to look at younger members. It's a carefully contrived effort into the notion that you can change Social Security arbitrarily for young people that are about to await that benefit. You can call the Social Security office today, all of you, and they can tell you, if you give them a date of what you might expect on that date of retirement. When you find out when you can do that with an annuitization plan, let me know.
Thank you, Rich. Someone who certainly knows that this opaque idea that somehow these benefits are not going to be, that somehow this is some form of hand or entitlement program, when in fact, as we all know, this is the insurance that people paid for. This is earned compensation. Nobody understands that better than my former colleague in the Connecticut State Senate, our long Attorney General from that state, consumer advocate for the people, and our current senior senator and sponsor of this bill in the Senate, Dick Blumenthal.
Thanks. Thank you. Thank you, John. You know, I'm really proud and honored to be here today. My former leader in the Connecticut State Senate and my current leader in the Congress, John Larson, and with so many House colleagues who are really at the forefront of this fight to preserve a bedrock institution that maintains the American people in their government, and with my hopefully soon-to-be colleague from Maryland, I am really excited about this proposal because it shows security works. At a time when Americans have lost faith in so much about their government, here's a program that works. We ought to preserve and enhance it by assuring that cost of living is fully covered, that benefits are increased, that people who pay a little bit more are charged a little bit more and pay into this program. It is preserved into the next century. This kind of reform, prayer breakfast. But social is not going to be preserved by prayer alone. Sorry. This action is necessary. I'm proud to be the Senate leader on this bill, and I look forward to other colleagues joining me as we move forward. Thank you to John Larson for his leadership, to my Courtney and other members of the Connecticut delegation. And John, thank you for leading the way on this effort. Thank you.
Thank you, Dick. And Linda Sanchez, aside from being on the Ways and Means Committee, is also the current chair of the Congressional Hispanic Caucus as well. Always been insistent, especially when it comes to Social Security, that nobody retire into poverty. And that's why this particular proposal that we're presenting today, in enhancing and expanding benefits for all Social Security recipients, especially make sure that it looks after the less fortunate amongst us, and making sure that nobody.
This is positively weather that we're having in D.C. I'm Congresswoman Linda Sanchez, and our colleague, Mr. Larson, for introducing a common sense piece of legislation that seeks to do some very good things for America. Social Security has long been one of our nation's strongest anti-poverty programs, and it's always been there. Seniors have so much uncertainty about their retirement. That's why we need to strengthen Social Security and preserve it for generations to come. The Social Security 2100 Act will offer benefits to seniors that better reflect the real costs that they face, because everybody knows that the cost of living continues to go up. So it would make adjustments for inflation, and it would help make the program stronger for future generations. Social Security is the most common source of income for people who are 65 and older. Minority communities, it provides a benefit that they've paid into over their lifetime of work that helps secure their retirement and ensure that they don't fall into poverty. Nearly 2/3 of all Latino retirees depend on Social Security as a major source of income once they retire. So I take up Mr. Larson's call to support this legislation, to talk about this legislation and what it can do for those who are looking at a financial future and wondering, how are they going to live once they retire? So I want to thank again Mr. Larson and the colleagues behind me and the groups behind me that you see advocating for this piece of legislation. And we will be working in the days ahead to gather the kind of support that we need to bring this bill forward. Thank you again, and I'll turn it back over to.
Thank you, Linda. Another Ways and Means Committee member who also happens to be our chief advocate of the budget on the Democratic side, and someone who thoroughly understands Social Security, and especially from the standpoint, as we point out, that this does not increase the national deficit whatsoever. In fact, because of the advocates behind us and so many members that have been advocating the social program, enhance the program without raising the age limit, enhance the program without reducing benefits, do so in a way that we have a 2% across the board increase, do so in a way that we change the COLA so it actually reflects the real cost that seniors are paying, make sure that no one can retire into poverty, and also provide 11 million Americans with a tax cut. Well, how do we do that? We scrap the cap, but we do so in a way that's sensitive to the middle class. We do so in a way that where we know everybody pays into the first 118,000 that they payroll, and then we tax again after $400,000. That amounts to 0.4%, who will be paying what everybody else does. We also increase the fund by 1%. We do so in this way. We phase it in over 25 years, which a person who's making $50,000 a year contributing 50 cents a week. So for 50 cents a week, we take America's greatest program with its greatest benefits, expand them, pay for them with no gimmicks, and make sure that Americans will have security into the future. That's why we have the support of our great budget chair, Chris Van Hollen.
Thank you, John. I want to thank John Larson for his extraordinary leadership on this issue. Day after day, week after week, ever since I've been a member of Congress, John Larson is in charge on strengthening Social Security. It's great to be here with my colleagues. It's great to be here with my friend and constituent, Nancy Altman, who literally wrote the book on the future of Social Security. In fact, 2 books on Social Security. To Max Richmond and Dr. Meyer, thank you and your organization for leadership on this issue. So in about an hour, we're going to start and marking up the proposed Republican budget in the Budget Committee. And that budget contains a provision, contains a rule change aimed at trying to cut Social Security disability benefits or other security benefits. That bill is the wrong way to go. This bill that John Larson and all of us are introducing today is the right way to go. You don't save Social Security by cutting Social Security. You save and strengthen Social Security in the way this bill does today. Benefit retirement plan. That has made Social Security all the more important for something that people can rely on in their retirement years and for the other purposes of security. So as a result of that, this protects Social Security, but it builds on it and makes sure that we strengthen it and increases the benefits in important ways. We will hear from our colleagues today in the Budget Committee and that we cannot afford to pay for future Social Security benefits. The reality is we cannot afford not to pay for those benefits. And that's what this bill is all about, making sure Social Security is there in the future, that we strengthen it in important ways. And again, I want to thank John, our colleagues, and all the advocates for moving this legislation forward. Thank you all.
Thank you, Chris. And I also thank my colleagues for indulging us. And we're going to be hearing in this order from Representative Courtney, Donna Edwards, Matt Cartwright, and Ted Lieu shortly. But we wanted an opportunity for the advocates who have been out front on this and have done such an incredible job. Chris, his constituent, Nancy Altman, books, and most notably, currently, Social Security works because it does. Nancy?
Thank you so much. Representative John Larson and all the sponsors of this bill, Senator Blumenthal, are not just champions of Social Security, they're really visionary. The nation is facing a looming retirement crisis. There's also a disappearance of the middle class. There's been an upward redistribution of wealth. Social Security is a solution. Expanding Social Security is a solution to these different challenges. We say Social Security works. We should be, there's been a disconnect in the conversation where people say the wealthiest country can benefits. We of course can afford them. We can afford expanded benefits. This legislation is incredibly important when it is enacted, as I trust and hope it will be. The economic security of all America's working families will be even stronger. So thank you to all of these champions and visionaries.
Thank you, Nancy. And now, Max Richmond, President and CEO of the National Committee to Preserve Social Security and Medicare.
I brought my fan club, huh? Thank you, Congressman Larson, for introducing the Social Security 2100 Act and for inviting me to participate this morning. Last week, the National Committee 2 million signatures from our members and supporters in the U.S. Capitol. We to Senator Bernie Sanders and Senator Sheldon Whitehouse, and then we worked our way through all offices, and our activists delivered the petitions. We had such an overwhelming response, communications with our members, to get 2 million petitions signed, because our members and supporters, understand how important Social Security is. These programs, Social Security and Medicare, are not just programs, they're American values. Unfortunately, the majority in the House of Representatives has lost sight of these values. Just consider the House budget resolution that is being proposed this week. It reaffirms a rule that will in effect require Social Security retirement benefits in exchange for financing the Social Security Disability Insurance Program. The rule demonstrates that there could not be a bigger disconnect between what Americans want and what the House majority wants to do with the Social Security safety net. Thankfully, Congressman Larson and his colleagues that are here today do understand, do appreciate the value of Social Security. That's why Congressman Larson introduced this bill. That's why Congressman Van Hollen will once again lead the fight against the Republican budget. He just left to do that. That's why Congressman Neal reminds us how important Social Security survivor benefits are. I've heard the congressman about this, and he gets it. He gets it right here. Every representative here this morning understands that stagnant wages are grinding away at the middle class. Larson has introduced will address that. People know that retirement benefits will put seniors on a better path. To cut Social Security have got to stop. That's why the National Committee endorsed Congress's bold initiative to ensure that today's and tomorrow's seniors have a livable income. Seniors who've paid into Social Security all their lives would have greater economic security under Congressman Larson's bill, and it achieves long-term solvency while making needed improvements to Social Security. That's why we're here today. That's why we endorse the bill, and I want to thank you for inviting me. Thank you.
Dr. Maya Rockamore is no stranger to the Democratic caucus, has been to speak before us several times, and clearly is an advocate not only for seniors, but an advocate for Americans all across this country, and we're honored he joins us here today as well. Doctor?
Thank you, Congressman. I just came by here to congratulate the congressman for being a leader in the nation on an issue that's so critical for millions of Americans from all backgrounds. In 2005, President Bush announced that his business upon re-election was to actually cut Social Security by privatizing Social Security. And let there be no mistake, companies of Social Security who will use any excuse in the book in order to cut benefits for orphans, and it is in their playbook to make sure that they do anything that they can. So if you got an issue, if Wall Street, the global economy, their solution, cut Social Security. If there is a deficit or a debt that needs to be addressed, their solution, cut Social Security. Next thing you know, they'll be talking that their fundamental agenda is to undermine the economic security of families. But this cannot happen because American families depend on Social Security. Now, my colleagues have already mentioned that we have a retirement crisis in this nation. Approximately half of Americans do not have access to a retirement savings vehicle through their job. And so for many Americans, Social Security is literally all they have. Now tell me, what kind of vision is it when all Americans do not have anything aside from Social Security, and then you have an agenda of the opposite side saying, let's cut those benefits? That is nihilistic and is simply crazy. So Representative Larson today offers a solution. And that solution is not only to strengthen Social Security solvency, which this bill does admirably, it talks about expanding benefits to Representative Larson on a job well done. And he's protecting not only American families, but particularly those who are most vulnerable, women who disproportionately rely on Social Security, the disabled, seniors, children, you name it, on Social Security. So I always say, security is a pillar of progress. We need to preserve, protect, strengthen, and expand it for generations to come. And this bill does that. Thank you.
Thank you, Maya. Thank you. Now, so the members that are going to speak now, starting with Representative Courtney, and then Donna Edwards, and then I'm going to have them come up one right after the other, but thank them, and it is their bill. They are sponsors of this legislation. All of them have provided incredible insight and contributed to make, as we developed this bill over the last 2 years, that it would address all the concerns that not only our advocates, but their constituents, who they hear from on a regular basis, have.
For your outstanding work and leadership on this issue. I know that's true, actually, because My mother-in-law, who's in her 80s, is one of John's constituents, and I hear about it all the time from her. Isabel, if you can hear me, with John on this bill, and you know, and have Easter dinner together. So I want to just make one quick point, which is that this bill, which has various changes in it, has been poll tested by the Pew Center for Public Opinion, which again is a totally neutral, nonpartisan sports. This cuts across party lines in terms of Americans of all regions, all age groups, and so there is just no question that crafted here, something that the majority of the public is looking for. They get it, that this is really the pillar of security for people of all walks of life, as the doctor just set forth. On the COLA reform, too, I just want to make one quick point. In 2010, the existing COLA resulted in 0% increase for people on Social Security. For seniors who were trying to pay property tax increases on their dealing with prescription drug cost increases, COLA doesn't work. The market it uses, which includes things like TVs and iPads, are something that really are not in the real life budget of people who are seniors. The budget is things like life-saving medication and trying to keep a roof over their head. And this particular proposal, I think, is just so important in terms of bolstering people's security in their homes and with their families. So thank you, John, for your great leadership. We're going to use that to help getting the word out on this measure, and we're going to get this done. Thank you. And now it's my honor to introduce one of my classmates from the class of 2006, who has been a unbelievably strong advocate for Medicare and Social Security, Donna Edwards.
Thank you very much. Thank you. And thank you both to my colleagues, but most especially thank you to the advocates who are here because of our leader, John Larson, and our colleagues. We're the American long-term solvency of Social Security. I thought, as some of my colleagues were speaking, I remember a time when in our family we needed to have those Social Security disability benefits because of my father's disability after long-term service in the United States Air Force. Benefits were really critical to our family, and my younger sons were still at home with my mom. And I just illustrate that because of the importance of Social Security as a baseline for so many American families, whether they are receiving survival benefits or they're receiving direct benefits or disability benefits. For Americans, the average Social Security benefit is really, and it's an earned benefit, $16,000 a year, which still means that so many for their retirement. And thank you so much for your here, because not only does this bill recognize that we have to preserve and protect and ensure the long-term solvency of Social Security, but it also recognizes that for those middle-income earners that it's important to go at the to make sure that we provide the resources in Social Security that are important for its solvency. I thought for a minute, there was an attempt a couple of years ago to implement the so-called chain CPI to letter to the president that said, do not implement that way of calculating. My Congressman Representative Courtney has described as a total miscalculation of the way that seniors spend their money and their expenses. And instead to do what John Larson is doing today, which is to implement a different cost of living calculator that takes into account the things that seniors are really spending their resources on. And the result would be the difference of about $428 a year for a Social Security recipient. $428 a year is groceries, it's prescription drugs, it's paying for the kinds of things that seniors really do. And so I just want to applaud my colleagues for us standing together on behalf of so many seniors and Social Security recipients to say that under no circumstances will we ever tolerate any cuts, any compromising on the guaranteed benefit of Social Security. And finally, I'd like to close You know, this year is going to mark the 80th anniversary of Social Security. And when President Roosevelt signed the Social Security into law, and for those of you who haven't visit that FDR Memorial, because he talks about the value of valuing our seniors and valuing all of our people. And what he said was that the law would, quote, give some measure of protection to the average citizen and to, and I say her, family against the loss of a job and against poverty age. This law, too, represents a cornerstone in a structure which is being built but is by no means complete. It is a law that will take care of human needs and at the same time for the United States an economic structure of vastly greater soundness. Those words were true years ago, and they are true today. Thank you very much. My colleague from Pennsylvania, Matt Cartwright.
Thanks, Donna. Good morning, everyone. It's my pleasure to join Congressman John Larson and the Ways and Means Democrats, as well as the House leaders that you've heard this morning, and the advocates that we rely on so heavily on what's going on with Social Security. You know, I come from northeastern Pennsylvania. It was in Pennsylvania where I first talked to John Larson about this bill, Social Security 20, and I immediately jumped on board. This is an idea that sells itself. Social Security is so important to this. I'm here to tell you Pennsylvania is going to be on board, Congressman Larson, because my district alone, the 17th Congressional District of Pennsylvania, we have a senior-heavy population. We have fully 24% of our population drawing Social Security benefits. These are understand the importance of real increases. These are people who, on average, are drawing $1,305 a month, and people who are trying to do that understand that in northeastern Pennsylvania. It's my honor to be here. You know, I was in Scranton last night because we had our St. Patrick's Day dinner in Scranton, and it was a great day for the Irish, Larson, and in fact, accompanying Bob Casey was Vice President Biden to the Irish dinner last night in Scranton. And, you know, Joe Biden says all the time, it bears repeating all the time, is there are those in this Congress who talk about values all the time. It's like, stop talking about family values. And Joe says, don't talk to me about values, budget. And the shutdown crowd, because they're always trying to build in these financial fiscal cliffs that we have to go over, and they're using them as pinch points to lower benefit spending, cut. That's the shutdown crowd. And one thing that they've done, and Congressman Larson alluded to it, is that they've built in another financial cliff that we're facing in 2016, and that's the disability insurance component of Social Security. And is they have set up a situation where they're trying to pit the retirement benefits people against the disability benefits in Social Security. They're trying to divide and conquer. It's just more of the same. Social Security 2100 is the right thing to do for all Americans. Thank you and congratulate you, Congressman Larson. And I'd like to introduce to everyone Ted Lieu, who has one of the bright shining lights among the freshman class among the Democrats in Congress.
It's an honor to be here with my colleagues and other advocates and to co-sponsor this fantastic bill. Let me tell you a story. It's about my parents, and their story is the same as millions of Americans. They came here to seek the American dream to have a better life for their children. And we grew up poor, and they worked hard. They worked 6 days to 7 days a week. They paid into Social Security, but as old age started to set in, as health issues arose, it became harder and harder to work. Until 2 years ago, they had to retire. Too much savings, and now they survive on Social Security. And that is the promise of America. It's our social that when you can no longer work or if you're disabled, we're not going to discard you. We're going to make sure you have the economic security that you deserve. And that's why I'm so proud of Representative Larson and all the people standing behind me, and look forward to working with all of you to strengthen and preserve Social Security.
Thank you, Ted. And before we, if you've stayed long enough and persevered through it, I want to say that, as has been, what this bill addresses also in this Congress, when we know we face a concern with respect to the disability part of this session, that this bill addresses that. That this bill makes both and the old age and survivors benefit solvent into, I'm always optimistic. I know that when Republicans get an opportunity to examine this bill, and if they look and act like Ronald Reagan did, and examine the benefits that are here, benefits that will be enhanced, the solvency of the program, so many of them want to save, and that when they also understand and embrace the cut that this is going to be able to provide so many working seniors who find themselves working out of necessity, I think we will continue to gather the momentum that had 56 members as original co-sponsors of the bill. Thank you so much for joining us, and if there's any questions, I'll take them now. Thank you, and again, thanks to our advocates for coming out and to our members who are all original co-sponsors.